I've said it once and I'll say it again. I love this little progressive rock community because they don't really let me sleep. Every time I think that I've milked the well for all the different prog releases of this year, another one comes out of the woodwork that blows me away. So let's dive into this one. Innate Passage by Elder. So Elder is a kind of like a hard rock, a psychedelic rock, a space rock, progressive rock outfit. They like to kind of meld the heavy psychedelic rock with progressive elements and evocative soundscapes, as their Bandcamp likes to say. We have Nicholas Di Salvo on guitars, vocals, and keyboards, Jack Donovan on bass, Michael Ringsberg on guitars and keyboards, and George Elbert on drums. And I think that might be one of the first times that I'm able to actually get all of their names, at least hopefully, correct. So I was really introduced to these guys after reviewing King Buffalo and loving and falling in love with their Regenerator album. And, a number of people recommended this to me, and even like the sites that I use to look at music was recommending it to me, saying, hey, if you like these guys, you got to check this guy out. And it was just released a couple weeks ago. So yeah, I dove in, and we've got 5 tracks across 53 minutes and 53 seconds. Love that. So we've got some pretty long stretches of music on here. So I was salivating. I was really looking forward to it. And we've got some really good stuff on this one. I'm not going to bury the lead in that case. This is some really good prog. I almost feel as though this is what Motorcycle should have sounded like after the All Is One. Like after the 3 album suite of albums they put out with like the Chrysolite, I'm forgetting the other one, and the All Is One, after they did To Kingdom of Oblivion and Ancient Astronauts, which were fine, but I feel like Innate Passage kind of continued that proggy baton that the All Is One set down with Motorcycle. It's very rockin', it's very heavy, it's very engaging, but there's a lot of space left to jam to. Like these guys aren't limiting themselves to shorter passages of music. The shortest track on here is 8 minutes and 37 seconds, and that's the last track of The Purpose. But I want to get into these tracks individually. The only thing I would say as a negative to this album, and it's very short, is that the first 3 tracks of Catharsis, Endless Return, and Condolences, I feel like these 3 tracks are kind of interchangeable. Like they don't vary very much between the 3 of them. They do, like if you've heard one of these tracks, you've essentially heard the other 2. And that's not necessarily like, on the one hand, it's not necessarily that much of a negative because, man, they sound so good, like there's a lot of really good stuff to have. I'm loving the keyboard outfits on here. I'm loving the guitar outfits on here. The singing styles and the lyrics are just to salivate over. But I will admit, like I said, there's not a whole lot of variations within the theme on these 3 tracks. It isn't until we get to the 4th track of Merged in Dreams, Napulse Ultra, where we get a little bit of variations. And this is the longest track at 14 minutes and 33 seconds, where there's a lot of more characteristics, a lot more variations in this one. And it comes in when this track kind of fades out around the 10-minute mark. And the 4-minute play out of this track is really something to behold. Like, I'm loving how they were able to make some really interesting ebbs and flows within this track. And that play out, I love that big, meaty, like building itself back up and creating a really beautiful crescendo in that sense. Like this is something that I love about progressive rock and something that I come back to bands like Elder and Motorcycle, and I'm even thinking of other bands like Riverside, where they allow themselves to have nooks and crannies within these songs and allow themselves to fade out a part of that song, almost stop the song entirely, just to build themselves back up again. And I love that play out of this track that then blends perfectly and seamlessly into the final track of The Purpose. So like the final 2 tracks here of Merged in Dreams and The Purpose create for just over about 20 minutes worth of music, like maybe 22, 23 minutes worth of a solid track that I really love. And I kind of wish that they had truncated them into one, because unless you're paying attention to the runtime, you don't know where Merged in Dreams ends and where The Purpose begins. And I really, really appreciate that. I really, really love how they were able to construct these two tracks. And the only other downside that I will say is that I feel like The Purpose at the end does kind of leave us with a whimper rather than a bang in terms of those final few moments. Like it's a play out, it's a fade out that I'm not all that excited about. I do wish that they kind of brought it back to some of the themes and some of the motifs that they had introduced in the first half of the album, but they never really kind of come round again. And I mean, that's fine. You know, I can't fault them for that, but yeah, in the end, Innate Passage was a really great treat, and one that I found myself coming back to. This one holds some of the strongest music I've heard from this kind of corner of the progressive rock landscape. You know, I'm kind of lumping in the Motorpsycho and the King Buffalo kind of essence in that. But man, the jams that they have on here, the song construction and the orchestration that they have on here is quite top notch, and one that kept me engaged far after I had left. Yeah, I found myself returning to this one time and time again, and I enjoyed every time that I revisited it. So I will say that an Innate Passage from Elder is one that I would download. You know, there's enough on here to make me return, as I mentioned. There's a few moments on here that I think they could have handled a little bit better. Some of the tracks, especially in that first half, wasn't quite as memorable as I was hoping for, even after repeated listens. But that might just be needing some more time with it. You know, this is not definitely the type of music that is immediate. This is the kind of music that is quite jamming, quite bumping, and quite all over the place, that you need a little bit of time with to digest and get under your belt before going on to, you know, maybe a couple more spins. You know, this one does beg to be listened to. But that's what I've got for Innate Passage from Elder. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. And I think that's all I've got for you guys today. That's all I've got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.